This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation.
You've waited decades for this leaders' debate on Britain's future relationship with Europe, and here it is.
This debate is about you, and it's really simple, because it's about your job. It's also about who we are.
The debate here today is between a tired status quo and a fresh approach which says, let's be friendly with Europe, but not be governed by their institutions.
I was actually quite surprised. I was leaning more towards Nick Clegg, but I think after the debate, Farage, he definitely did sway my opinion.
Well, I would have been more in favour of Mr Farage initially, but I thought Mr Clegg spoke very well indeed.
There is genuine concern here in Paris and across Europe that Britain might actually pull out of the EU, and catastrophe, some say here. Tonight's debate is therefore being watched very closely indeed.
Michael Portillo, journalist, broadcaster, author.
I heard last night Clegg putting a lot of reliance on statistics. Farage, I think, putting a lot of reliance on people's gut feelings.
Andrew Mitchell, former Conservative Chief Whip.
I'm going to say it's a score draw, and I congratulate LBC on organising such a brilliant debate tonight.
On FM, online, on your mobile, and across Britain on DAB Digital Radio. This is LBC. This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Ask Boris. Mayor of London Boris Johnson takes your calls with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0845 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. This is Ask Boris on LBC.
Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock on Tuesday, the 1st of April. This is Boris Johnson. This is not an April Fool. This is Boris Johnson bringing you your latest edition of Ask Boris on LBC. I'm here for the next 45 minutes taking your calls. This is your chance to put any question you like to me, and I will do my best to answer with my trusty helpmeet, Mr. Nick Ferrari. So the numbers for you to get your questions on the air are 0845 6060 973. or email boris@lbc.co.uk. And don't forget, you can also watch Ask Boris in high definition on the website lbc.co.uk. So we're going to go straight away to the first call, and it's Gary in Dartford.
Good morning, Boris.
Good morning.
Good morning. Given the one-sided nature of the debate last week, I mean, if it was a football match, it would have been called off at half-time, right?
Yes. Are you referring to the epic contest that was refereed by my distinguished confrère here, Mr. Ferrari?
Absolutely. And fantastic refereeing, actually. I think.
Good. Well, he's preening himself, though.
I'm sitting here quietly.
So given the energy that Farage has brought to the debate regarding Europe, and given your alignment with Europe and past comments from Farage seemingly backing you for leadership of the Conservative Party.
I'm not aware of those, Gary, but you...
No, he did. He made comments back in 2012 saying that he would prefer it if you were the leader of the party. He did that.
Well, nec tali auxilio, nec defensoribus istis, as we say in City Hall these days. Yeah.
But
that's just in the car park.
Yeah. Given the potential votes being taken away from both parties by Farage, would it seem sensible for you to throw your hat in the ring and stand as an MP and see where it goes?
No.
Excellent.
Well, Gary, thank you very much for that humdinger of a question, which is one that obviously Nick loves to ask, and the answer is I've got to get on and do what I've been elected to do in London, and we've got a massive job on our hands. The number one issue, I think, the number one issue for Londoners is housing. What are we doing to tackle that? The Olympic legacy, you name it, Gary. We've just got to. I've got my hands full, and in political terms, and you talk about the Conservatives in political terms, the number one job of all of us is to work for the re-election of David Cameron. Because I tell you what, I do not think it would be a good thing for London. I don't think it would be a good thing for this city or for this country if we were to go back to Ed Miliband and Ed Balls, who were the guys who totally, I was going to use a profanity, but who drove the car into the ditch last time. I don't want to go there. I think David Cameron's done a fantastic job, and I want to see him back in 2015.
You should mention David Cameron, Mr. Mayor, because he was interviewed by James Corden as part of a sport relief enterprise just a couple of weeks ago, and he expressed great excitement at the possibility that you would come back into Parliament. I'm quoting directly, I think Boris, should do. I want to get him back in Parliament. I think he's great. It's a bit like football. If you've got a great striker, you want him on the pitch. It's up to him.
Come on, Nick. The last time I played football before any kind of audience was, I think, in the Medeski. I didn't get sent off, actually.
Rugby
I did not get sent off. It was in the Medeski Stadium in Reading. I was not actually sent off because the referee concluded it was a legal challenge.
Well, it was a rugby tackle.
I was going for the ball. Unfortunately, his midriff got in my way. It was not a distinguished bit of football, that I will concede. And
the Prime Minister wants you as a great striker on the pitch. Answer the call of the country.
I'm on the pitch. I'm playing for London. I'm doing my best for us here in London, and my job is to do whatever I can to get them back in.
Do you know what I've concluded?
Go on.
I've always
if by this.
Sorry about
this. If by this. No. We're coming back to.
We will.
But we've got to go to Dan in West Hampstead. We've got to go to. If by this you mean you have genuinely concluded.
I have concluded.
And you have decided that you are going to draw a line under this series of questions.
Because
then that would be.
I put it to you.
Go on.
That I thought there was some great Machiavellian subplot going on with you. Oh, I'll show a little bit of ankle, but then I won't, and then I will, and then I won't. I don't think you know.
Listen, I do.
You actually don't know.
What I know is my job is to.
You don't know what to do next.
You're very kind to.
That's the truth, isn't it?
Dwell at such length on my own personal circumstances. What I need to do is get on.
You don't know. You actually don't know. You're flip-flopping.
I don't know. I've been entirely consistent.
True.
No, I've been entirely. Well,
how many months have we been doing? How many years have you and I been talking in various meetings?
Well, I don't know. It's completely. You know,
are flip-flopping.
Yeah. Well, listen, you've been going on asking the same question. I've been relentlessly giving you the same answer.
Just tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I don't know what is it that I don't know.
You don't know whether to go in or stay as where you are. You just don't know. You go with the wind.
What I know I've got to do.
No. Just tell me I'm wrong with that. We move on.
No, because it's a trap question. Because
it's not.
It's a ludicrous trap. You sit. Come on. I think everybody's had enough of this. There's Dan in West Hampstead who wants to ask a serious question. It's not asked Ferrari.
I think I was onto something, Dan.
No, you're entitled to your views. But you said, by the way, that you've concluded. Does that mean that this question is no?
How's the Hammersmith Fly undergoing?
Doing well.
Is it? Yeah. That's what's made you decide not to go in last time. Is it? Have we got the plans? Is it all green lighted?
Well, not
green
quite.
lit.
We're not quite there yet, but it is just one of a series of amazing things you can do to improve.
When will I be able to drive under Hammersmith and not fly over it?
Not in the next 5 years, but probably in the next 15 years.
15 years? Aye.
Well, come on, these things are not done overnight.
Sure
they're not done overnight.
Right. Well, we need to come on.
Let's go to Dan in West Hampstead.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, thank you for taking my call. And first, can I just say, just before I ask the question, congratulations to LBC and to Mr. London for fantastic hosting last week of the European debate. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Well, do you think we've got the next mayoral candidate sitting here? Do you think he's feeling so unbelievably?
Too many skeletons.
Come on.
Too many skeletons.
I would love. I think I can speak for a lot of people that would love to see Nick.
No. It's Ask Boris. Don't worry. Maybe my day will dawn. We'll call Nick or something. I don't know. Phone
Yes.
Ferrari.
Do you hear that, folks? I think we've got the story this morning.
Right. Dan of West
Ferrari
Hampstead,
is allowing. Talking about showing some ankle. Talking about you don't know.
Your call to the current mayor.
Are you? Come on. Are you? Will you or won't you? Come on.
You answer your question.
Completely. He can't speak. He's been reduced to infantile aphasia. He doesn't know what to say.
Let me see the lay of the land in 12 months' time. Depends what you do. It depends what you do. It depends what you do.
He's thinking about it. This is a most extraordinary turn of events, folks.
Now let's go back to the Jeremy Paxman of West Hampstead.
Future candidate completely dissolve under questioning.
Dan, talk to the man.
Serious question is, Mr. Mr. Mayor, given the fact that London is potentially facing a fine of about £350 million for breaching pollution levels, why are the lunatics at Transport for London concreting in and narrowing all the major roads in London, Whitehall, Waterloo Place down up by Pall Mall, Parkway and Camden Town? They were all 3-lane roads where traffic flowed. They're now single lane, and all the other 2 lanes have been concreted in, and so traffic sits, belching out fumes. Traffic's tailing back for miles up the road. Why?
Dan, all I can say is that what we've done, I mean, I'm not aware of the schemes that you're mentioning. They're not part of our project, which is to smooth traffic flow, and indeed I'm proud to say that actually traffic speeds have microscopically increased under my mayoralty from about 9.3 to 9.4 miles an hour, which isn't much consolation, I know, to people such as yourself who are stuck in traffic. I'll look at all the schemes that you mentioned. We are obviously very concerned about the first thing that you mentioned, which is the problems of air quality. And there we are obviously putting in loads of measures, including cleaner buses, limits on taxi ages, measures to encourage walking and cycling to improve our air quality. Actually, London is now only in breach of one respect, in the which is the nitrous oxide. We've made huge progress, and we've reduced nitrous oxide emissions by about 20%. I'm not saying that we've cracked it, but we've made huge progress, and don't forget we're bringing in the ultra low emission zone down by 2020, which really will make a huge difference to air quality in the centre of town.
Quick response from you, Dan.
Yeah, I just think this. I understand you're doing all the other measures like the low emissions.
But it's the narrowing of the streets you're complaining about.
Yes, exactly. I'm saying it's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
If you're doing all the other measures, which I agree with you, great, and I love the fact that you've been planting thousands of trees over London. I think that's fantastic. But as someone who goes around, I use public transport. I don't drive all the time. But just recently, I've noticed it's crazy. The traffic sits in a single lane, stretching back from the traffic lights all the way.
Listen, Dan, I'm going to take up every single point that you make. Obviously I cycle everywhere, so I see some of the impacts of some of these road improvements. So sometimes I wonder what we're doing, and very often our traffic engineers will have a rational explanation for what is going on, almost always. I'll make sure that in respect of every single scheme that you've mentioned, I think you mentioned Camden and various others, we will give you a
Dan,
full
run through the list to one of my colleagues. We'll pass it on to the Mayor's office as we move to the next caller. Mr. Mayor.
We're going to Carol in Paddington.
Go ahead, Carol.
Carol?
Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Boris.
Good morning.
Boris, I heard you speaking last week, and I'd like for you to explain properly. You took the councils to court and won.
Sorry, say it again?
Yeah,
I took the
councils to court. They actually took you to court because people who's in council houses, you want them to pay 80% just like people who have a mortgage. And the council's argument was, you're going to put families who's working, their wages isn't going up.
No, let me.
I will come back to you. Let's just hear the Mayor's. I will come back to you, Carol. Mr. Mayor.
What the councils were arguing was that they should be able to set rents which were going to make it impossible for us to build more of the homes that we need. The biggest problem we've got in London, Carol, is that we can't afford to build. We can't build enough housing fast enough, and that is obviously affecting huge numbers of people who can't get the home they need near their place of work. We've got to build about 400,000 over the next 10 years. And the argument was it was actually quite a technical argument between me and some councils over the exact model of the affordable rent. And it's not 80%. Carol, that we're imposing. In fact, it's an average of 65%. So across London, you'll find plenty of homes still going at social rent levels. That's 40% of the market rent. And the argument I make the whole time is an argument I think the court understands, is that you've got to maximise output. This is a struggle now to equip London with the homes it needs in the volume it needs. We've got the spaces, Carol. We've got the 33 opportunity areas. We can do it. We've got the room, but we just need to get the developers to get on and build it. And that was what that argument was about.
Edgefleet in Kent, yeah?
Yes.
I'm sure you said that's going to be private homes. Is that correct, or is it for everybody?
It's for... No, I've said no such thing. And Ebbsfleet, where the government has just announced they're going to build a new town, is going to be for everybody. And
Okay, so that's going to be like prices that working parents, people who's working can afford, or is it going to be very expensive?
No, it's going to, and indeed, what we're trying to do across London is build enough homes for London's workforce. I mean, you're on the right track, Carol. This is the single most important challenge for our city. If people who make London work, who are absolutely indispensable to the London economy, cannot live within reasonable commuting distance of their place of work, then London will simply grind to a halt. The economy will seize up. This is and the whole country depends on London. So it's a national imperative to build enough affordable homes in London. That is why it is so important. Ebbsfleet, the other issue with Ebbsfleet is can we get the transport cheap enough? Because a lot of when we go out and talk to people living in the Thames Gateway area, where clearly there's huge opportunities to build new homes, what they're telling us is, well, we would, but it's the fares on the rail that are such a deterrent, and because they think, well, I could afford to live here, but could I afford to commute in? So we've got to address that as a country. We've got to think about how we can get people into work, how we can build enough homes.
So when it comes to the next mayoral elections, whoever it is,
I think we've had a major development this morning on that
house building.
Yes, I think you better bone up, Nick. Now, what is the difference between affordable rent and social rent, Nick?
I have no. Well, actually, I could answer that actually, but I don't want to bore everyone to death. I'd rather go.
That's the sort of thing I say.
I don't want to bore everyone to death. I'd rather bring in some questions via email instead. Carol, thank you. More calls in just a second. I've got to go to one from an email. Tim in Walthamstow. I am black. My brother is a police officer. This 50-50 quota will not work. How do you think it will work? It's going to create more problems in the police. This is the idea of a sort of positive discrimination from Sir Bernard Hogan Howe.
Well, listen, I just want to say, Bernard, I've got a huge respect for, and I think he's doing a blinding job at the moment.
Do you really?
I do, yeah. And
it's described as chaotic by that panel of MPs.
You can come back to that if you want. Let's talk about this issue now. Tim, what we've got to do, as I've said when I was elected in 2008, is get a police force that looks like London, that actively commands confidence of the city because of the way it's composed. Now,
why?
Because I think it would help.
Why will it be a better police?
Because I think it would more faithfully reflect the communities it serves, and it's just an observation.
That makes it better.
It would certainly command more confidence, and I think it would be even better at bringing down crime. And it is, by the way, doing a fantastic job. The police are doing a fantastic job in that respect. Tim, what Bernard is arguing is that in Northern Ireland, they had to change the complexion of the police very, very quickly. And they had a system, as I understand, I'm going to get this roughly right. They said, we'll go 1-1-1-1, we'll go Catholic, Protestant, until they built up a sense of parity. And what he's saying is that the normal processes of recruitment that we've tried, and we have increased the numbers of black and minority ethnic officers in certainly in the PCs, PCSOs, and police constables. The numbers are going up, the proportions are going up, but they're not going up very fast, and they're not yet anything like the proportion in London as a whole. So Bernard is saying, well, why don't we do something like what we did in Northern Ireland? And at the moment, I've got to be totally honest with you, I'm reflecting on it. I think it's something we need to consider. I think we need to think about whether... That
suggests reservations.
I think it's because it's not obviously part of our traditions, as I think Tim would say. It's not a part of our traditions here in England.
You wouldn't want a black lad getting a job just because I'm black.
That's right, because he would be undermining his or her own confidence in his or her own success and achievement. But and there's all sorts of ramifications you've got to think through. But Bernard is, we've tried very hard to have a very, very active recruitment campaign from BAME groups. And what happened actually was we got a huge rush of people who were interested in the idea. But then it all, for one reason or another, the numbers fell away. And so we were left roughly where we were. And we're trying to dig into that, work out why that happened.
What will affect your judgment? How will you come to whatever your conclusion?
I think this would be a big change. I think we'll need to debate it. I think we'll need to have a proper conversation.
Debate with
London. Well, we'll talk around it with the Mayor's Office of Police and Crime. I imagine we'll have a consultation before we do such a thing. I mean, I don't think this is something that I'd want to just enter into at the drop of a hat.
Right, okay. Has the Deputy Mayor Greenhalgh given you the benefit of his views?
We've discussed it, but I don't think I need to go into the details of the discussion we've had so far.
It's on the table for discussion.
I can see, look, there's the potential of the idea is that it does seem to have worked in Northern Ireland. The downside is I think the one that possibly Tim is driving at. That you have whenever you have a positive discrimination move, you're inevitably going to set up certain problems of the kind that you've just described. So it just needs reflection.
And one last one before we go back to the calls. Another email on policing matters. Brian in Stepney. Do you feel the Met Commissioner has a lot to answer for over the neglect in not following up all the documents that were shredded 10 years ago following the murder of Stephen Lawrence? This, of course, was described as chaotic by a panel of MPs last month.
Well, I saw that, and I thought that was a little bit harsh, to be honest, because these
didn't know what had happened. He hadn't spoken to Lords Blair or Stevenson. Well, he'd not put in calls to his predecessors. If that's not chaotic, Mr. Mayor, what is?
Well, what is not chaotic is what has happened. They had
didn't know what was going on.
Hang on, this event, or series of events, actually, because it is disputed.
You talked about a witness suffering... All right, go ahead.
No. We're talking about an event that took place either in 2001 or 2003, which is relating to the shredding of all sorts of documents which might or might not be material to the whole issue of undercover policing. Right. Now, this happened not on the watch of Bernard Hogan. It happened at least 10 years ago.
So you don't know about the murder of Stephen Lawrence because it didn't happen on your watch? I would suggest you found out everything you needed to know.
It is entirely reasonable for a Commissioner of the Police not to know exactly when or who shredded certain documents.
So you found out.
And that is what is now happening. And I'm as soon as the report is concluded, I'm sure you will be the first to know.
I see. So whoever takes over as mayor next doesn't need to know about the London Olympics because it didn't happen on his or her watch.
No.
That's a fatuous argument just because it didn't happen on their watch.
Don't be... Nick, I think people can spot the flaw in what you're saying. We're talking about the shredding of documents, which was a fact unknown to anybody, let alone...
Right.
I mean, did the former Commissioner John Stevens know about it? We've yet to...
Well, it might have helped if he phoned him.
We've yet to establish
Sir Bernard have phoned Lord Stevens of Kirk Whelpington or Lord Blair?
He has been in contact with both gentlemen, and I cannot divulge the contents of their conversation.
Can you give me a clue?
No.
Can you mime it?
No. No, come on. What I can tell you is that I think that
the attack. How forward has it gone with the conversations with Lords Stevens and Blair?
I can't tell you. I can't tell you. That's a matter for the Commissioner and for the previous Commissioners.
How comfortable are you with what you've heard from Sir Bernard?
I'm extremely comfortable that Bernard Hogan Howe is getting to the bottom of events that happened long before he was Commissioner.
Why can't the public know what's going on?
The public will know what's going on.
Why can't we know now?
In the fullness of time.
But why can't we know now?
Because I don't want to rush out and start giving you some, half-digested
I'm sure
piece
it
of
will be half-digested, Mr. Mayor.
Because they can't. That's why. And I'm going to tell you as soon as it's...
Lastly, Sir Bernard talked about concerns over a witness being intimidated, the witness who was talking about the shredding. Who would be doing the intimidating?
As I say, as and when this stuff is fit for...
it could only be the police.
Fit to be published in a proper form, it will be...
But who else could be the intimidating, I wonder?
I leave that to you to speculate about.
Ask Boris, of course.
Come on.
Let's go for more of your calls.
We're going to know.
Mark in Dagenham.
Mark in Dagenham. I turned over your page and lost your name. Mark in Dagenham.
Hello, Boris. Thanks for taking my call.
Not at all.
Right. Question for you. There's supposed to be a new bridge coming over, linking the north to the south circular.
Yes.
Right. People in East London, Dagenham-wise, etc., all we have is the toll bridge, the Queen Elizabeth Bridge.
Yes.
Which is quite an expensive thing, tax on people going to work.
Yes, you're talking about the second Dartford crossing here, are you? Or are you talking... Which bridge are you talking about, Mark? You're talking about the new bridge?
The new bridge is supposed to be linking the north to the south circular, Beckton Way.
Yeah. Right. Well, there's several proposals.
Oh. Yeah.
Go on.
My question is, what reassurances can you give to the people of East London this won't be a toll bridge? Because we're all scared that that's going to happen, and it's not going to help people who can barely afford to go to work anyway.
Mark, pardon my ignorance, it's Nick Ferrari here. Where does it leave the south and land, just so I get a full sense of this? Where's it going to take off and where's it going to land, Mark, that you've heard?
Well, we're told there's supposed to be a bridge linking the North Circular, which runs from the M11, to the South Circular, running across Beckton.
So it goes from Beckton, into Eltham or Woolwich?
It runs it. Yeah, be running into Elton.
Running over. I thought that idea.
That's the Thames Gateway Bridge.
Yes.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, I thought that would have been shelved.
Let me try and answer Mark's question. What we got to do, Mark, actually is build not just one bridge, but a series of river crossings. We're starting with the Blackwall 2 tunnel, which will help Nick Ferrari in particular.
Yes, indeed.
And that will be going by 2020 or 2021. Not so far away.
Okay.
Only 6 years or 7 years to go. We're going for the Blackwall 2 tunnel at Silvertown, but we will also need a series of crossings to the east. And actually, there's loads of sites that we are looking at, and I think the important thing for the people of on both sides is that you shouldn't just do one, because if you do one, then you're going to get much more pressure, much more traffic on that area. And if you can dilute the traffic if you have several crossings. London is going east, Mark. It's the big changes in our city are happening as the population starts to grow again in the east. Look at the jobs being created in Tower Hamlets in Newham. It's incredible to look at the way employment is taking off in those boroughs. You see those statistics yesterday about falls in unemployment in eastern London. It's very, very remarkable. We've got to build on that. We've got to build new river crossings, but Mark's really asking, will he have to pay? That's what he really wants to know. And the answer there, Mark, is, look, I'm really sorry, but I think almost certainly yes is the answer. And I'm very sorry to say that, and I know it's going to be, news that you won't want to hear, but I cannot see how we can, in the current financially straitened circumstances, put in huge new infrastructure like that. All of them cost hundreds of millions of pounds, without tolling them.
Let's get a quick response from Mark. Mark, quickly, if you would, a response to the Mayor.
Well, I can understand the cost implications of this, but people in West London enjoy free travel, and I don't see why we can't. Bearing in mind, the ordinary working man, we're talking £20 a week just to actually use the bridge.
Well, Mark, I understand that point. I understand that point, and I understand the sense of injustice historically, because all those bridges were built in the west of London, and that's where the city was. I mean, of course, in the old days, many of them were tolled, and when they were first built, they were tolled in order to get them built, and that was the economic model that they had to use to construct those bridges, and that is the grim reality of where we are today, Mark. I wish I could give you a sort of tooth fairy answer and say it'll all be fine and you won't have to pay a thing, but that is not. Perhaps TfL will tell me otherwise, but I doubt
Mark, in no way appearing glib, of course, if you are using that Dartford crossing, if you get a Dart tag, it's not massive, but there is a saving, as I'm sure you're aware, sir, so you don't have to pay the whole £20. It might help a little bit, Mr. Mayor.
Can we go to Ray in Orpington? Ray?
Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Morning. In the spirit of April the 1st, I just wanted to talk about the rather sort of nonsensical notion of having an airport built out in the Thames Estuary. And I would refer you back to a week ago, March 26th, when the southeastern London was beset with fog.
Yes.
And one airport shut. All the others were open. The one airport that shut was the City Airport, which is surrounded by the docks, not by the Thames per se, but by the dock. And you are proposing to build an airport in the middle of the Thames Estuary, which would be, on a daily basis, almost affected by fog. So transatlantic, transworld flights wouldn't be able to land because it would be located in wholly the wrong place. And to me, it sounds like a vanity stroke insanity project.
Well, okay. Well, let me try and come back on that, Ray. Actually, there's no reason to think that fog would afflict an airport on the Isle of Grain side any more than it does at Heathrow. There's no evidence for that at all, and I don't think that is not one of the problems that we have with the location of the airport. I think the more serious objections are obviously about the expense of building out into the estuary in that way, the transport infrastructure you'd have to put in. I think that's the serious objection, and the difficulty there, it seems to me, is easily overcome when you get back to what we've just been talking about. Mark in Dagenham was asking about new bridges over the Thames east of Tower Bridge. We've got to do that, and we've got to put in the transport infrastructure that the city is going to need in the long term as it moves east. And so the bill for that estuary airport that everybody says is so high actually is mostly composed of of new transport infrastructure. That is, I think, a bill we should be ready to pay for the long-term growth of London. London is going to be 10 million people by 2030. 10 million people, and we are going to need great housing for them with great transport links, as we've been discussing earlier on. And we think that the best place, the most promising sites, are to be found in some of that area to the east, in the Thames Gateway area.
All right, let's do one more call before the news.
Can we go to Steve in Battersea?
Absolutely, then the news. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to find out if there's been a great increase in the number of electric cars in Westminster. And I wondered, now whenever I go around there, all the charge points are full of cars. Is there any plans for you to invest more money in charging points in the Westminster area?
Well, we do have a network called Source London, which has in fact just been successfully privatised, in the sense that it's been taken over by an enterprising guy called Vincent Bolloré, who's been running a scheme in Paris where he has loads of electric cars, and we're going to trial it. If it works, it works.
Are there more? I think was Steve's key point here. Are there more on the?
Are there more charge points? Yeah. I think we've got about 1,700 charge points. We've got quite a few charge points.
Yeah. I think, Mr. Mayor, the point is that if you go into Westminster today, you will find, and I go round and round looking for charge points, they are not enough, because there's been a great increase of people using electric cars, and there isn't enough. And I do use Source London, so I know them very well. There just simply is not.
You
enough
want more charge points? Are you suffering from range anxiety, Steve, where you're worried that you're going to conk out because of low battery?
Absolutely right. And both myself and my wife drive electric cars, so we're actually both of us suffer from this problem, and it does get very difficult.
Have you ever conked out in traffic?
I have conked out in traffic once.
Right. Can you charge? I'm just interested in this. Can you charge overnight at home?
I can charge overnight, and I do charge overnight. But the amount of sort of mileage that I do within central London, I easily get up to the limit. It's only a little one that's got 30 miles to a charge, so you do run out fairly sharpishly.
Is it one of those Indian ones? What are they called? G-Whizzes?
No, it isn't a G-Whiz. It's an Exxon Mega. So it's a bit old, but all it gives you is 30 miles to the charge. And you could do that. I live in Battersea, as you know, and I can do that sort of 3 or 4 rounds of Westminster, and I'm empty.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, we're putting in more charge points, and as I say, we're shortly going to be seeing whether we can actually go for a electric car hire scheme of the kind that they have in Paris, and this we've trialled it in Paris. They claim it works in Paris, and they're going to see if they can make it work in London.
Hang on a second. So we're not just moving from Boris bikes. What are we going to have now then? Little Boris bugs, little cars.
Well, we're gonna
Johnson jalopies.
We're going to see how it works. We are going to see how it works. I'm not making any extravagant.
So how many cars
promises.
are we going to have?
I'm not making any extravagant promises for this, because we have devolved to.
Well, when are we going to try the pilot?
Frenchman. They're full of hope and optimism. You must ask them.
Who?
You must ask them. Monsieur Vincent Bolloré.
Usual spelling.
B-O-L-L-O-R.
So we don't know how many cars, we don't know when, but we are going to do it.
We are not going to do it. We are allowing, in a spirit of
vive la différence,
in a spirit of free market enterprise.
Yeah,
we are allowing just as we have electric car sharing schemes and so on. We're allowing Mr. Bolloré to have a crack at it.
And what will the cars be? Little did you say? Sorry, I'm not familiar with G-Whizzes or something.
There will be
what does that mean?
I don't know. There will be little electric, milk crates, little
electric milk crates.
They'll be beautiful. They'll be beautiful.
But we don't know when.
All those questions you must direct to Mr. Bolloré.
On that bombshell, we pause briefly. There will be more calls to Ask Boris after an LBC News update.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Aziz. The Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, has told LBC he has concerns over the idea of introducing a quota of black and ethnic minority officers in the Metropolitan Police.
You would be undermining his or her own confidence in his or her own success and achievement, and there's all sorts of ramifications you've got to think through.
Met Police Commissioner Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe wants a change in the law to allow positive discrimination. Ministers are being accused of losing hundreds of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money by undervaluing Royal Mail when it was privatised. A report by the National Audit Office criticised ministers for being too cautious about its initial share price, which increased nearly 40% in its first day of trading. It's claimed more than £46 million of public money has been wasted on more than 1,000 unnecessary jobs in the NHS. The Taxpayers Alliance says they include an art curator, a car park environmental officer and hundreds of PR staff. At 9:15, the FTSE was up 32 at 66.30. And LBC weather, sunny spells for London and the south east, becoming very warm today with highs of 20 degrees. Heavy rain, though, across central Scotland and north east England will clear through the morning. Sunny spells developing elsewhere, isolated heavy showers possible in the south and the east. LBC News Time, it's 9:34.
I'm Joanne Webb. In the LBC Travel Centre, there are long delays on the M25. The problems continue. Severe delays from junction 5 at the M26 to 8 at Reigate because a lorry's broken down and 2 lanes are closed. It's taking at least an hour and a half to get through that queue. Also on the M25, the anti-clockwise exit slip road is closed at junction 22 at London Coney because of an accident. And there's been an accident on the North Circular Road eastbound at the Kenninghall interchange. Only one lane is open and it's very slow on the approach. In Derbyshire, there are delays on the M1 northbound from junction 27 at Hucknall to junction 28 at Alfreton. This is because of an accident where one lane is closed. In Manchester, it's very busy on the M62 eastbound to junction 12 at the M60. That's because a car has broken down. In West Yorkshire, there are delays in both directions on the A1 at Little Smeaton because of an accident. And in North Lanarkshire, the M80 very slow at northbound to junction 6 at the Old Inns junction because of an accident earlier, which is now cleared. Keeping you moving, your next travel update is in 15 minutes.
This is Ask Boris on LBC.
Yes, Ask Boris with me, Nick Ferrari, and London Mayor Boris Johnson. Mr. Mayor, I wonder if I can get you to respond to the story on the front page of the Times newspaper today, which is suggesting that there is a group of Muslim Brotherhood planning or coordinating an international response to the plight of Mohammed Morsi from a flat in Cricklewood. What can you share with us?
I'm afraid I can't give you any details about that investigation, and nor would you expect me to.
Right. But is that because you don't know?
It is because even if I did know, which as it happens I don't know very much about this particular case, but even if I did know, it would not be something that I would be commenting on.
Right. MI5, Britain's domestic intelligence agency.
Yeah, I mean, as we've discussed before, Nick, I think when you look back at 7/7, you look back at some of the challenges, the airline plot, look back at some of the challenges that the counter-terrorist units have had to face. I think it is amazing that we have, touch wood, they have done an absolutely unbelievable job. Unbelievable job. And it is not easy. There are probably in the low thousands people like that who are full of the wrong ideas, completely, they've been radicalised in one way or another. And you've got to keep monitoring them and what can I say? They are constantly vigilant to keep us from disaster, and they do a fantastic job.
We move on to other
Sally in Stevenage.
Hello.
Hello, Sally.
Hi there. Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can I just firstly start by saying that I think you've done an amazing job with regards to London in many, many different ways.
Oh, thank you.
Particularly with public transport. My question is obviously the traffic problem in London is getting worse and worse year in, year out.
Yeah.
Would it not make sense to have a policy in place where only buses, taxis are accessible to the City of London between the hours... sorry, I've got my words.
I know what you're saying.
Basically ban cars in the City of London between the hours of 6 in the morning and 6 in the evening, only allow public transport between those times. Or would that not happen because you'd lose too too much money in relation to the congestion charge.
Yeah, no. Well, that wouldn't be the reason why we would do it, Sally. I mean, actually, I do often think about this type of measure, and unfortunately, the people it would hit would be the people who really are in the worst position to defend themselves. People who may be small traders, who are very, very tight margins, who are on low-paid jobs, who for one reason or another, they're not adequately served by public transport. They're living just too far out. They're living in the wrong place, or they need a car for some reason for their work. And I'm afraid it would be a real poke in the eye for a huge number of people. We are trying to turn London into a city that is where the air quality is much better, and that's happening. The air quality is starting to get. We want to reduce frustration and congestion and all the things people complain about. And so the answer, I think, is to massively to improve your public transport, and we've been doing that. If you look at the tube now, delays on the tube are down, I think, 40% in the last few years. All that money we put in, yes, people were very impatient about the Jubilee line, but it works better now. The Northern line, we finally almost painlessly completed the signalling on that. That's starting to be better, and I think if you can put in the mass transit solutions, get people walking, get people cycling, explain how quick it is sometimes to walk to wherever they've got to go, then you won't have to resort to really hurting people who absolutely have to use a car. I mean, I'll tell you, Sally, in my view, I think many people in London are increasingly deciding that the car is not necessary for their lives, and car usage is starting to fall, and that's a very good thing. I'd support you there, but to ban them, to have total car-free days, you can do it. Obviously we did it during. I'm afraid to say, when the big cycle races come, there will be times when people will find it very difficult to drive around London. But to do it regularly, I think, would be economically punishing for people who are in a tight position.
All right, let's have another call.
Barry in Camden.
Good morning, Boris.
Good morning.
Morning. Now, what I'd like to bring up is the fact on cycling. Now, I'm a professional driver.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-cycling. I do ride cycles. I ride everything. I'm teaching my children at present to cycle. I would think it would be a very, very good idea, seeing as the major statistics of traffic injuries are pedestrians and cyclists.
Yes.
Two groups that never usually read a highway code.
Yes.
Now, the problem is, can you bring or enforce in some way that retailers have to supply a copy of the highway code with every push bike sold?
That's an interesting idea.
That is an interesting idea. I am reluctant, as you know, to have any kind of new bureaucracy or regulation. But that is an interesting idea. I think people should be, because the truth is that you can use a push cycle in London without a driving licence. You don't actually have to know what the signs mean, as I understand. You don't have to know what's the rules of the road. Barry, that is an interesting idea. I mean, I think what we might do is see if we can do something on more of a voluntary basis. See if with the sale of cycles, see if we can get someone to sponsor it. Or I'll think about that, Barry. Right. Let me take that away and put it to our people in surface transport. See whether there's something we could issue new cyclists or people just buying a bike.
We're coming to the last couple of minutes. I've got one
John
question.
John in St Albans.
Just a couple of questions.
The candidates back to
what went wrong with the £1 million startup competition?
Nothing went wrong with £1 million.
This is a £1 million startup competition.
Whenever you ask me a question beginning what went wrong, my instinctive answer is to say that nothing.
What progress is it making?
Well, listen, I'll get back to you on that. Go on.
Right, let me put it another way. Has it been killed off?
I don't know.
Well, you're the mayor. You should know. It's a £1 million competition supported by the Mayor of London and the Tech City Investment Organisation, because 1,000 entrants were deemed not worthy of the prize.
Yes.
So it's been quietly killed off. All true?
Well, if that is true.
Well, you're the mayor.
Let me answer the question. If that is true, and if there's some, could you pass me that piece of paper you've just?
No, that's been handed to me with respect, Mr. Mayor.
If there is some competition that has been killed off because there weren't good enough entrants, and that shows, to my mind, the scrupulous way in which we handle public funds in this mayoralty, and the way we've been able to cut council tax, therefore, year after year,
why didn't you proclaim that,
and the way we manage things.
Rather than quietly kill it off, why didn't you proclaim it? That you were saving money?
Well, I'm proclaiming it now.
You're proclaiming it now that I've confronted.
I proclaim.
So this is a proclamation after a confrontation.
What totally absurd question. You don't
this is a post-confrontation proclamation.
And by the way, even if one particular competition didn't elicit the kind of entries that we want, it is, and we've thereby saved £1 million. It is still the case. It is still the case that London is going through an absolute boom in tech companies. 28,000.
Not good enough for this competition.
28,000. Well, that shows that we don't believe in an.
And the Digital Shoreditch Festival, I'm just learning, has been cancelled.
We don't believe in an all must-have prizes.
Can this be true?
We don't believe in an all must-have prizes approach in City Hall.
Has the Digital Shoreditch Festival...
There was an approach to government which, before I came to the Mayoralty, which basically believed in fire-hosing money down the drain.
Has the Digital Shoreditch Festival been cancelled? Will I be doing something else that weekend?
The Digital Shoreditch Festival there is a perpetual digital festival in Shoreditch. You cannot cancel it. It goes on. More and more businesses are starting
Ken in Bexley Heath. My wife is a serving police officer in London. How will you decide whether the pilot of putting cameras on their tunics will work?
Well, it's. I'm interested.
Video cameras are going to wear.
Body cameras.
Yeah, body cameras.
Body-worn cameras. And actually, I've seen them working. I've been out with the police in Sutton looking at how it works there, and it's very interesting. I think it could work, and I think we should roll it out because this is something. You talk about building confidence in the police. And by the way, just get back to the exchange we had about.
Wasn't testy mind. No, it
wasn't testy mind either.
I welcome you every month.
The exchange we had about policing in London. The key thing I think most Londoners recognise is that the police are individually doing an outstanding job, and crime in their neighbourhoods is coming down. And body-worn cameras would actually help us because we think it would help the police with the evidence gathering. It would give members of the public the confidence that the police wouldn't,
want it to go ahead.
Think of Plebgate, the confidence that nothing would happen to distort the event. The police wouldn't make a record. Hang on, there we go. I'm being given saying we haven't wasted any money at all. It's all a total triumph. But I said that already. Body-worn cameras are, I think, in principle, a good idea.
Okay.
And
so you go ahead with it.
Yeah, and we're going to run it out.
Are they on all the time, though, Mr. Mayor?
No, it's very interesting.
Because if I go up to give a police officer some info, I might.
You can turn them on. It's very interesting. You can turn them on quite quickly. They're not on, obviously the whole time.
But then you'll be open to allegations. You didn't. This is the problem for them, isn't it?
Go on.
You're a copper, and I've got some information about someone who's just done a robbery. I'm not going to say it on camera because I don't want to be got by the bad guys. I'm going to ask you to switch your camera off before I tell you that it was Boris Johnson who stole the bicycle or whatever. So they're always going to be open to allegations that they switch the on-off button when it... Do you see what I'm saying? Either you've got to run all the time...
I sort of see what you're saying, but I think there will be lots of cases where the body. I mean, I sort of see what you're driving at, but I think there'll be in most cases the fact of the body-worn camera will be of great value both to the police and to members of the public, just in establishing the facts of what went on in the interaction between the police and the public.
Now, to prove,
and we're seeing confidence in them. Just to go back to this point, we are seeing confidence, trust in the police actually rising now in spite of all this stuff that has been in the papers.
Now, to prove that the Mayor is a man of his word, you may recall this from last month's Ask Boris.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, Sandra.
Today is the 71st anniversary of the Bethnal Green Tube shelter disaster.
Right,
the worst civilian disaster of World War II, which I know you know about.
Yes.
Our charity has raised almost £400,000 so far, and we've built two-thirds of a memorial to honour everyone that's involved in it. We now need just £75,000 in order to finish it.
It sounds as though you're very close, and you're bargaining very hard with me. You're trying to make it sound like you only need another 25,000. If that really would make a difference, then let me see what we can do to help.
Sandra in Hartley joins me again, and the Mayor is here as well. Sandra, good morning.
Good morning.
I've got the Mayor who wants to speak.
Good morning.
Mayor.
Well, good morning, Sandra. I'm afraid we haven't been able to get all the way to get you over the line, but we have found £10,000 from TfL. I hope that will help some way. And all I can say is if that will, I'm sure that we can help with further fundraising if that is necessary. But I do think your project is a good one, and we do think it right that Transport for London should reflect what happened at Bethnal Green back there in the war.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic news. Thank you so much. And I can tell you it means an awful lot to our charity commission and all the survivors of the Bethnal Green Tube disaster. And I think now that you've given your support in this way, it will prompt other businesses and individuals to come on board and match your generosity.
How close are you now, Sandra? How much more to go?
We need 75,000.
So
now we need 65,000.
Okay.
So hopefully that will help us finish our memorial, the Stairway to Heaven Memorial, as quickly as possible. So.
I really support what you're doing, and I hope everybody listening will go off and read about the Bethnal Green tube disaster, because it was a really tragic event, and it was the source of all sorts of really unfounded rumours throughout London during the war, and set up a lot of anxiety. And it would be fantastic if the city came together to memorialise the victims in this way.
All right, Sandra, thank you. Stay in touch. Let us know how you get on. A man of his word, Mayor Johnson, thank you to you as well on behalf of all those who are raising the funds, and thank you for another edition of Ask Boris.
Thank you, Nick. Well, absolutely. I think we've had a major breakthrough today, folks.
Yeah.
So we know what the story
Here on
is.
LBC, you know what to do next.
We know what the story is out of today.
Next.
Come on, let's have it.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Call 0845 6060 973.